Let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about. Oh, I shouldn't say let's talk about. Let's go down to Las Vegas. I'm very sad to say it, but you know what? Things happen for a reason. And for the NFL, in the terms of the team themselves, I think this is a good pickup. Kenyan Drake signs a 2-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. For fantasy purposes, it derails the entirety of Josh Jacob owners' dynasty value, redraft value. He is just capped, and he will forever be the person that does not receive another target in NFL backfield because he's just not going to get the pass catching rope. John Gruden came out and said that Kenyan Drake is a jack of all trades. They plan to use him outside, inside, line him up with the receivers. So that just tells me one thing. He's going to be getting the passing work wherever it comes from. And this day and age, when it comes to fantasy, you want the back that has it all. You want the guy who can run the ball and catch the ball, the CMCs, the Saquons. And for the last 2 years or so, we've been teetering on that line. Well, is Josh Jacobs going to be that guy? He's been running all this year. He ran all last year. We thought this might be the year, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Therefore, he slides back in my rankings for whatever they end up being. We haven't done them yet, obviously, but I don't see it boding well for Josh Jacobs because the only guy that I want that just purely runs the ball is Derrick Henry. And I don't think Josh Jacobs is Derrick Henry just yet. What are you thinking about, Joe?
I mean, dude, from a purely football standpoint, this was the dumbest move I've ever seen.
No!
Like, I'm sorry, but this team has holes everywhere on the defense. People are they're dismembering their offensive
They
line.
traded what 2 or 3 of their offensive linemen, which was one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah,
they cut one of them.
They get rid of the offensive line, and then they go and sign Josh Jacobs back up to a $7 million deal if he hits those incentives, minimum $6 million deal. Like, I just don't get it. But even from a fantasy standpoint, I was pissed. But listen, guys, I've taken some time. I've thought about it, and here's where I've left off. Kenyan Drake was thrust into that I'm gonna do it all back role last year, right? And he, Edmonds was there at times, but for fantasy purposes, he was the guy. He had 240 carries. He had never even cracked 200 before that. And I don't think he did that great, right? We all had higher expectations for him last year that he was going to easily hit 1,000 yards. He's in this high-octane offense. He's got Hopkins over here, Kyler Murray. There's no pressure. Well, it looked at times where you're like, man, Edmonds is better than him. Well, so I kind of like this move for Drake because I looked at the numbers, guys, and the Raiders 2 years ago, Josh Jacobs had 250 carries or so. He still had 1,150 yards. It was maybe his best year. And
his rookie season, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and then Kenyan Drake, when he was in Miami, when he had those pretty dynamic years, he was only 120, 130 carry back, right? But he made his impact by getting 53 receptions for 500 yards, getting 5 touchdowns through the air, getting 4 on the ground. He was 1,000 yards all purpose. But you look at the Raiders from 2 years ago, well, DeAndre Washington had 108 carries. Jalen Richard had 39. You're looking at 150 right there, right? So it's easy to see where Drake can get 150 carries and then get some pass work, right? Because when we talk about the Raiders, we say Ruggs, very underwhelming last year. Didn't do anything that we expected. In terms of the rookie wide receivers, he was a flop, right? Then we look at who else they have on the rookies or at the wide receiver. They got Edwards. Sure, a lot of flash. We haven't seen anything. Renfro, very average player. Waller is the guy, right? Well, who else is the guy? It kind of makes sense that Drake is the number 2 pass option, right? I mean, in Ruggs, even at his best, doesn't project to be a guy that's getting 10 targets. No, I think he's a deep bomb threat. Mm-hmm. So you can get him 4, 5, 6 targets, but you can also get Drake 7, 8 targets. So I don't know, guys. I'm kind of excited for Drake because I think last year he was overdrafted. This is going to set the expectations back a little bit to where, hey, he's not a 3rd rounder, 4th rounder, 2nd rounder. He's probably a 6th, 7th guy, 6th, 7th round guy. And you may get really good value, flex value, 2nd RB value out of him. So I like it. I'm okay with it, not from a football standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint.
I'll piggyback really quick before I hand it off to you, Jacob. I love the move too for all the reasons you just said. And especially the part where you said they literally dismantled their O-line. Who knows who's going to be able to get through whatever they put in front of Derek Carr this year. And if they don't improve that defense at all, Josh Jacobs becomes a game player who gets game scripted out. So meaning Kenyan Drake is going to be in there just as much and getting all that dump down pass work when everyone gets through the line. So for fantasy purposes, like Joe said, I completely agree with this move, and I will take Drake pretty comfortably wherever he's sitting. I probably going to fall somewhere like in that 6 to 7 round range. Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, I think that Drake will be looked at as a backup to most casual fantasy players, but I think he's going to be a little bit more than that. You know what this reminds me of is, I don't want to say a poor man's, but a middle-class man's Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Look how productive those guys were together last year. And there were ups and downs. Chubb missed some games, obviously. Kareem Hunt actually performed better when Chubb was there for the most part. But if you look at both of their seasons overall, pretty damn good. And I had both of them in one league, and I started them both every week, and it worked out pretty well for me. I think this could be a similar situation where obviously Kenyan Drake is the Kareem Hunt in this situation, more of a pass catching back, change of pace, third down, all that stuff. And Josh Jacobs is like the Nick Chubb. And to be honest, it's very rare where these days where you have a Saquon Barkley and a Christian McCaffrey where they're just straight up the workhorse, or even Derrick Henry usually would come off the field every third down. But my point is, I think both of these guys are going to be fantasy relevant, to be honest, because before I honestly thought of Josh Jacobs as he's got to be an RB1. That's how I thought of him going into every season so far. Now I'm like, okay, look, we still have Nick Chubb as an RB1, but while I'm not going to be looking at Josh Jacobs as an RB1, I'm looking at him as a high-end RB2, and then Kenyan Drake as an RB3 flex option. So I don't think it's the end of the world, to be honest. And they did say that Drake is going to, for what it's worth, we've heard this coach talk before, but that Drake is going to line up at wide receiver a lot. Apparently Gruden has told him that. And I think Gruden is an offensive mind. So I think he's like, I'm just going to go all in on what I know is offense. And I think he wants to improve that opposed to improving the defense. But for fantasy, I don't mind this.
Yeah, they need to improve the defense. But it thinks like I feel like we all agree here. Definitely Kenyan Drake will be fantasy relevant. It's just a matter of where and what time and when, but we will probably see that very, very soon.
I like that comparison to Jacob of Hunt and Chubb. I was thinking of it as a reverse Ingram Kamara, where Kamara's the pass catcher, but he's so much better that he takes the lead role. Well, this is going to be the opposite. Drake is that pass catcher. Maybe he's going to get down in the red zone because they pass it more. So we'll see. I don't know. I like it though. Interesting.
Yeah. It's not bad.